A kingdom's dark legacy reignites as Chaika, a mysterious girl with a coffin, embarks on a perilous mission to gather her tyrant father's scattered remains. With hired allies and deadly enemies at every turn, her quest threatens to unleash chaos across the empire. As alliances shift and secrets unravel, the line between honor and destruction blurs. Will Chaika's mission bring closure or catastrophe? The story begins with Chaika encountering a demon who reveals her destiny as her father's heir. After leaving her father's castle, she wanders through the nearby forest carrying a coffin. She meets Turu, an unemployed wanderer searching for money in the forest. After an unusual first meeting, Chaika explains she's trying to reach Delcerant town but got lost. Turu offers to guide her there in exchange for breakfast. Before Chaika can answer, Turu hears a monster nearby. He grabs Chaika and they escape by jumping off a cliff into a river below. They rest by the riverbank, believing they've escaped the monster. While Turu complains about being worthless and gazes at the sky, Chaika opens her coffin and removes mechanical parts. She asks Turu to distract the monster while she assembles a magic sniper gun. Turu activates his magical powers just as the monster horse finds them. He fights the creature while Chaika builds her weapon. Once complete, Chaika casts a spell and shoots the horse, killing it with one shot. After the battle, Turu powers down and returns to his normal self. Chaika, pleased to discover Turu's usefulness, happily accepts his offer to guide her to town and buy him food. Unknown to them, a bald man who has been following Chaika examines his dead demon horse, wondering who helped her defeat it. At a town diner, Turu eats messily when his adopted sister Akari suddenly appears and destroys the entire place. Her reason is simple. She's angry that her brother hasn't been paying attention to her. After Akari scares away all the customers with her rampage, Chaika helps the siblings pay for the damages since they have no money. The three then discuss their situation, and Chaika offers to hire both siblings to help her search for her father's remains. With no better options, Turu and Akari accept her offer. Meanwhile, Alberic Gillette meets with Count Abarth, one of the heroes who defeated the Emperor. Alberic wants to obtain an item that Abarth got after the Emperor's defeat. When Abarth asks about his intentions, Alberic refuses to explain. After Alberic leaves, Abarth returns to his mansion to check the item, which turns out to be Emperor Gaz's remains. Alberic rejoins his team to discuss the strange atmosphere they noticed around Abarth's mansion, though they can't pinpoint exactly what feels wrong. During this time, Akari and Turu have a conversation about Chaika, questioning whether they should trust her. Turu reassures Akari, saying he's decided to help Chaika as long as she can pay them. That night, the trio sneaks into Abarth's mansion. They find it surprisingly easy to enter due to minimal security. Count Abarth wakes up after hearing noises in his attic. He discovers Turu in the middle of his mansion and attacks him with wizard magic. When Akari and Chaika rush to help Turu, they get caught in earth magic. However, Abarth suddenly stops his attack when he sees Chaika. He's shocked because he thought she was dead. Abarth's shock at seeing Chaika alive causes him to momentarily lower his defenses, allowing Turu and Chaika to escape. After they leave, Abarth decides he must eliminate Chaika again. Turu meets up with Akari to create a plan for reaching the mansion's center. They agree to separate. Turu will keep Abarth busy while Akari and Chaika search for the article. After splitting up, Turu encounters Abarth in one of the corridors. He activates his special power, the Iron Blood transformation, and confronts Abarth again. Abarth attacks first with explosive magic, but Turu successfully evades it. Abarth then launches flying knives at Turu, who continues to dodge while keeping Abarth distracted. Meanwhile, Akari and Chaika reach the mansion's center. They discover a hidden door behind a mirror and use magic to open it. Inside, they find one of Emperor Arthur Gaz's hands. When Akari prepares to destroy it, Chaika pleads with her to stop, revealing that this is exactly what she's been searching for. During the ongoing battle, Turu's attacks against Count Abarth prove ineffective. He attempts a surprise attack, but Abarth anticipates it. As a final strategy, Turu leads Abarth to the living room, where he has secretly tied a fishing line to the ceiling's chandelier. Abarth follows him, and they engage in typical battle conversation before resuming their fight. Turu deliberately allows Abarth to hit him to avoid raising suspicion. When Abarth moves into position, Turu springs his trap by cutting the chandelier's line, leaving Abarth suspended in the air. At this moment, Akari and Chaika arrive with Emperor Gaz's hand. Turu joins them, and together they escape from the mansion with their prize. Once they reach a safe distance, Turu questions Chaika about her true identity. Instead of answering, Chaika opens her coffin and takes out coins to pay them for their help. Just as Turu reaches for the payment, he spots an incoming arrow. He quickly pulls Chaika to safety and turns to face Alberic and his men, who have emerged from hiding behind them. Alberic questions Turu about his loyalty to Chaika, but Turu claims he's simply fulfilling a paid job. Albrecht then offers Turu more money to abandon Chaika and leave. However, concerned about what Albrecht might do to Chaika, Turu and Akari choose to protect her. They create a diversion with a smoke bomb and escape to find a new hiding place. Turu takes Emperor Gaz's hand and runs to a bridge. One of Albrecht's men catches up to Turu at the bridge and attacks him. Without using his special powers, Turu defeats the man and keeps the article safe. However, just as he prepares to leave, more of Albrecht's men arrive and surround him on the bridge. Albrecht gives Turu one final chance to hand over both Chaika and the article, but Turu refuses. In response, Albrecht reveals Chaika's true identity and warns Turu that protecting her and keeping the article could trigger a war between the Empire's nations. Turu's response is unexpected. He declares that he actually wants war and will do whatever it takes to make it happen again. At this crucial moment, Chaika uses her sniper gun to create a brilliant flash of light, giving Turu the opportunity to escape. After their escape, Turu, Chaika, and Akari find refuge in a small house hidden in the woods. There, they make a significant decision to become Chaika's permanent protectors. Chaika finally opens up to them, explaining that her mission to collect her father's remains is driven by her desire to give him a proper burial. She expresses her gratitude for their help before retiring for the night. The following day, Chief Conrad, who is one of the 8 heroes who defeated Emperor Gaz, receives news about the attack on Count Abarth's mansion. He tells his assistant that he doesn't want to be involved in the situation, and she passes this information to the council. Meanwhile, Turu, Akari, and Chaika continue their journey, traveling through the forest toward their next destination. Turu, Akari, and Chaika catch a ride on a wagon heading to Ipsum town. The other passengers keep eyeing Chaika's coffin suspiciously, believing it brings bad luck to their town. Upon arriving in Ipsum, they continue to attract unwanted attention from townspeople. To be less conspicuous, Turu purchases a muslin cloth to cover the coffin. He then asks Chaika about their next objective. Meanwhile, Albrecht learns that Chief Conrad has denied his request for additional forces. Accepting this setback, he gathers his team for another meeting. They manage to locate Turu and Chaika and assign team member Vivi to capture them. Later that afternoon, the trio enjoys a big lunch at a local restaurant. Turu is puzzled by how carefree Chaika seems despite their dangerous situation, but she continues eating and lets Turu and Akari handle the serious discussions. When Turu inquires about the location of Ipsum's rulers, their waitress interrupts to explain that no one knows exactly where the ruler lives. However, she mentions a rumor that the town's ruler is a dragoon Cavalier who resides somewhere in the mountains. After paying for their meal, Turu, Akari, and Chaika leave the restaurant. Shortly after, Albrecht's agents Vivi and Zeta track them to the restaurant they just left. Realizing their targets couldn't have gone far, they hurry into the crowded town to search for them. During their escape, Turu's group spots Albrecht's wagon in town. They quickly hide, hoping to avoid detection. However, someone does find them, a young boy who Chaika recognizes. He introduces himself as Chaika's informant and collaborator. When Chaika signals that he can be trusted, Turu and Akari listen to what he has to say. The informant provides them with details about the area's ruler, Dominica Scotta, the Dragoon Cavalier, and reveals where she lives. After sharing this information, the mysterious informant vanishes, and the trio continues their journey. Following their informant guy's directions, the group finds an abandoned vehicle in the forest. Chaika demonstrates her technical skills by repairing it before nightfall. As darkness sets in, they make camp near a river. Chaika attempts to cook dinner using magic but burns their food. Despite the charred meal, they sit down together to eat the burnt chicken. During dinner, Turu confidently declares he'll take the lead once they reach Dominica's castle. Akari acknowledges his courage while warning them about the fearsome nature of dragoons. Meanwhile, Albrecht conducts another meeting with his team in his wagon. They discuss their history of capturing fake Chaikas and debate whether this current Chaika is genuine. The trio travels toward Dominica's mansion in their newly repaired vehicle, with Chaika driving. During the journey, Turu asks Chaika about her escape from Gaz's mansion. She reveals she has no memories of her life after the war that claimed her father. As Turu apologizes for asking personal questions, Akari warns them about the Orthros, a dangerous monster known to attack travelers in this forest. Almost immediately, they're ambushed by a pack of Orthros that manages to overpower Turu. Just when the situation seems hopeless, Dominica Scotta, a knight in armor, appears and fights off the Orthros pack. After defeating the Orthros pack with her magic, Dominica introduces herself and shows genuine hospitality, inviting the group to stay at her mansion until the next day. Upon arriving, they notice the mansion is completely empty. No servants, guards, or other residents. When Dominica asks about their background, Akari fabricates an elaborate story. She and Turu are siblings who fell in love, and Chaika is their child. She explains they're traveling to find a place that would accept their forbidden love. Moved by their story, Dominica provides them with a room. Once alone, the trio explores the mansion out of curiosity. They first discover the kitchen, which is abandoned and covered in cobwebs, suggesting years of disuse. In the yard, they find something strange, a magical projection of Dominica Scotta. After confirming the mansion is deserted, they return to their room. The group faces a moral dilemma. Dominica's kindness makes them reluctant to fight her for Gaz's remains. Turu assures Chaika he'll devise a plan to obtain the remains without betraying their host's hospitality. While Chaika prepares for a bath, Akari joins her, helping wash her hair and explaining Turu's reasoning. During this time, Akari helps Chaika better understand Turu's decision-making process. During breakfast the next morning, while Chaika enjoys her meal, Turu wrestles with how to approach Dominica about their true purpose. He finally gathers his courage and asks her about Emperor Gaz's remains. Dominica confirms she possesses some of them and inquires about his intentions. When Turu explains he's trying to help someone important to him, Dominica's demeanor changes. She becomes aggressive, drawing her sword and challenging Turu to a fight, with Gaz's remains as the prize. Turu requests time to prepare, which Dominica grants. Back in their quarters, while Turu and Chaika discuss battle tactics, they notice Akari brooding in a corner. When questioned about her mood, Akari reveals she's feeling jealous of Chaika, complaining that Turu has been paying too much attention to her lately. Turu reassures his sister that his relationship with Chaika is purely professional. He simply wants to help her complete her mission. That evening, Turu and Akari confront Dominica in the front yard. As the fight begins, Turu, who has discovered that this Dominica is an imposter, activates his iron blood transformation magic. He and Akari execute a strategic plan, deliberately maneuvering their opponent toward the mansion's yard where the magic projector stands. Turu successfully knocks down the projector, confirming his suspicions about the fake Dominica. Despite his demands to know the real Dominica's whereabouts, the imposter continues fighting. From her strategic position, Chaika fires an exposure shot from her sniper rifle, revealing the imposter's true form, a dragoon who had contracted with the real Dominica. After being defeated, the dragoon explains that Dominica had died from illness long ago, and it maintained her appearance to prevent suspicion from authorities. Understanding the situation, Turu retrieves Emperor Gaz's eyeballs from the dragoon. The dragoon then transforms into its new form, a girl named Frederica, and makes a declaration to eventually kill Turu. Despite this threat, Turu, Chaika, and Akari thank the dragoon for its cooperation and depart to continue their quest for the remaining parts of Gaz's remains. In a new town, Chaika approaches locals asking about a hero's whereabouts. Some dishonest townsmen try to deceive her with false information, intending to kidnap her. Fortunately, Turu and Frederica intervene just in time to protect her from the scheme. Later, Turu and Chaika unsuccessfully brainstorm about where to find the next hero, ending up just looking at each other in frustration. Akari returns from hunting with her catch and brings alarming news. She's discovered wanted posters of them in town. Turu immediately urges everyone to leave before their pursuers catch up. Meanwhile, Alber and his team take a break near a riverbank to rest from their pursuit. After practicing his combat techniques, Alber confides in one of his men, expressing envy toward Turu and Akari for having found their purpose in life. His subordinate advises him to focus on future possibilities instead, suggesting marriage and starting a family. Albric responds that while marriage is important, he hasn't met anyone he'd consider as a potential wife. This conversation inadvertently hurts Vivi, one of his female team members who has been secretly harboring romantic feelings for him. Leonardo, Alberic's scout, returns with news of possibly spotting Chaika and her companions near Primera Town. Though uncertain of their identity, Albert immediately mobilizes his team toward Primera. Meanwhile, Chaika drives her group to a deserted, eerie settlement. Their vehicle is stopped by a mysterious masked figure who proceeds to attack Turu when he steps out. During the fight, Turu manages to unmask the attacker, revealing someone who looks remarkably similar to their Chaika. More attackers emerge from hiding, leading to an extensive battle. The skirmish results in a mutual capture situation, Turu and Akari capture the lookalike Chaika, while their opponents capture their Chaika. When Alberic's team arrives at the battle scene, they analyze the area for clues about where the combatants might have gone. As night falls, Turu and Akari set up camp in a cave, keeping their captured Chaika bound. During interrogation, she identifies herself as Chaika Bodan, though Turu and Akari remain skeptical of her claim. At the enemy's camp, they try to get information about the remains from Turu's Chaika, but she refuses to cooperate. During mealtime, she eagerly devours her food, while the captured Chaika, Chaika Bodan at Turu's camp, barely touches hers. After dinner, when one of Chaika's captors does a final patrol, they discover a note from Turu requesting a meeting at the West River upstream. Nearby, Leonardo and his companion prepare the meeting spot by leaving meat to attract beasts. At Turu's camp, Chaika Bodan reveals her mission: to gather her father's remains and exact revenge on those who betrayed him. When questioned about her post-war memories, she, like Turu's Chaika, has no recollection. This similarity makes Turu question whether she might be genuine after all. While he ponders this, he notices a bug on Chaika and moves to remove it. This innocent gesture triggers Akari's jealousy, causing her to forcefully intervene. Turu explains the situation and tells her to control her reactions. The next morning, both groups head to the West River upstream for the prisoner exchange to recover their respective Chaikas. During the prisoner exchange, both teams verify their Chaika's well-being before proceeding. As the Chaikas walk toward their respective sides, flying monsters suddenly attack. Turu and Akari defend their Chaika while fighting off the creatures. It's revealed that Alberic's men are controlling these magical monsters from their hidden position in the woods. The two opposing groups temporarily unite to defeat all the monsters. After the battle, Turu decides to keep the enemy's Chaika, taking her back to their hideout with Frederica's help in navigating through the ruins. Leonardo has an epiphany following the encounter. Emperor Gaz might have had multiple daughters, all named Chaika. His team finds this theory plausible. Meanwhile, in Primarial, a chaotic meeting of nobles and senators takes place, with the king sleeping through the entire session. The meeting ends in discord, with the king showing no interest in resolving the conflicts. Back in the forest, the other Chaika attempts to persuade Turu to switch sides by offering to buy his services. Turu maintains his loyalty to his original Chaika and declines the offer. Later, Frederico questions Turu about his feelings for his Chaika, but before he can respond, Akari's timely arrival interrupts the conversation, leaving Turu's feelings unclear. A second exchange takes place in town, where Turu returns the fake Chaika and reunites with his original Chaika. Someone appearing to be Akari teases Turu about his obvious relief at seeing Chaika again. The group is unknowingly targeted by a sniper, but Akari detects and confronts the threat, forcing the sniper to flee. As they return to their vehicle for safety, it's revealed that the Akari who helped them was actually Frederica in disguise. She transforms back to her normal form and compliments Turu on his choice to stay with the white Chaika. The real Akari returns shortly after, bringing a gift for Chaika, who gratefully accepts it. During their journey to the next town, Chaika expresses concern about the existence of multiple Chaikas. Turu reassures her, promising to stay by her side, which brings a smile to her face. However, their path is soon blocked by the fake Chaika and her companion, David. The fake Chaika presents an ultimatum: either join her cause and surrender Gaz's remains, or face war. When Turu refuses, she threatens him with her snake blade, but realizing they're outnumbered, she and David retreat. As Turu and his group continue their journey, the fake Chaika remains determined to recruit Turu to her side. During his night watch, Turu checks on Chaika and adjusts her blanket. Akari catches him and immediately assumes the worst, accusing him of having inappropriate intentions. Turu dismisses her accusations with a sigh, telling her to stop imagining such scenarios. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Chaika's mysterious informant, who brings news about Simon Scania, another hero supposedly deceased and located in the Koenigsegg Empire. When Turu questions the informant's sources and knowledge, the man simply identifies himself as a messenger before vanishing. The group returns to town to gather supplies and information about Simon. While shopping, they hear disturbing stories about Simon's fate. Meanwhile, Albrecht meets with Chief Conrad to discuss a concerning development. The heroes who possess Gaz's remains have been exhibiting unusual and powerful abilities. After the meeting, Albrecht returns to his team for updates, where his bald teammate reports successfully locating Chaika's group. Albrecht confronts Turu's group, demanding to know Chaika's true intentions for her father's remains. When she explains her wish to give her father a proper burial, Albrecht remains skeptical and demands they surrender both Chaika and the remains. Turu refuses, leading to an intense sword fight between the two. Frederica intervenes in her dragoon form, rescuing Turu, Akari, and Chaika by flying them to a nearby ravine. There, Chaika performs a locator spell and detects unusual magical energy. Despite the danger, she decides to descend into the ravine, with Turu and Akari following. When they lose their footing and fall, Frederica transforms again to save them from certain death. The scene shifts to what appears to be a romantic moment between Turu and Chaika, but this is revealed to be an illusion created by Simon's magic, with the real Akari, Frederica, and Chaika watching from within a protective barrier. Akari becomes jealous seeing Turu's imagined scenario with Chaika and wants to wake him, but Chaika advises against it due to the risks involved. The illusion comes to an unexpected end when the imaginary Chaika betrays Turu by choosing to marry Alberic instead. After breaking free from the illusion, the group refocuses on their mission. Chaika uses her locator spell to pinpoint Simon's location. They discover and destroy equipment generating a thick fog, revealing Simon Scania's shed. When confronted, Simon initially denies his identity and explains his tragic past, how his friend Marco betrayed his military unit to the enemy and conspired with Simon's wife to abandon him. Having lost everything meaningful in his life, Simon willingly hands over Gaz's remains when Turu and Chaika request them and shows them an exit route. Back in their vehicle, Chaika brings up Turu's illusion and assures him she would never betray him, like the illusion suggested. However, Turu responds pragmatically, stating that a relationship between them is unlikely due to their different social standings. This response deeply upsets Chaika, who expresses her hurt by giving Turu the cold shoulder for the remainder of their journey. Alberic meets with Conrad to discuss Chaika's whereabouts. Conrad redirects Alberic's priorities, asking him to focus on improving citizens' lives rather than pursuing Chaika and her companions. Alberic understands the reasoning and agrees to this new directive. Meanwhile, Chaika's group continues their journey through the forest, discussing Gaz's creation of magic fuel. They encounter what appears to be an inspection checkpoint, where guards and suspicious individuals claim to represent Gaz's empire and demand a toll. Chaika impulsively pays with a silver coin. Despite Turu's efforts to limit information about their group, the suspicious individuals search their vehicle thoroughly. To explain their presence, Turu claims they're traveling entertainers. The group is then challenged to prove their cover story by performing for another Chaika, a blonde princess, at their castle. With no alternative, they follow the group to their hideout. They put on a performance for the blonde princess Chaika and the others. During this time, one of the guards has a nagging feeling of recognition when looking at Chaika, but can't quite place where he's seen her before. At a library several miles away, Vivi finds Alberic engrossed in his studies. Though she intends to confess her feelings, she decides not to interrupt him. Back at the settlement, Turu's group joins the others around a campfire for dinner. When scouts return with stolen goods from noblemen, Turu realizes the truth. These people aren't imperial officials at all, but rather thieves surviving by stealing from the wealthy. The two Chaikas have a private conversation about their aspirations. The blonde Chaika invites the other to join her group, euphemistically describing their theft as securing financial assistance from nobles. When Chaika politely declines the offer, the blonde Chaika begins reciting a poem but is interrupted when one of her followers calls her away for their next mission. After blonde Chaika departs for a heist in her stealth outfit, Turu shares his suspicions about the group's true identity. While Akari agrees with his concerns, Chaika advocates for giving them the benefit of the doubt. The heist goes wrong when blonde Chaika is captured, having been betrayed by an informant. Her men attack Turu and Akari's vehicle but are soundly defeated and restrained. When news of blonde Chaika's capture reaches the camp, Chaika convinces Turu to help rescue her. They successfully break into the noble's castle dungeon and free blonde Chaika, whose real name is revealed to be Julia. Back at the camp, Julia expresses her gratitude by finishing the poem she started earlier and apologizes for her deception. Before Turu's group departs, they ask about Emperor Gaz, but Julia's group has no information to share. Turu leaves them with advice to reform their ways. Meanwhile, kingdom officials convene a late-night meeting to address Duke Garvani's brutal reign of terror, discussing reports of him killing citizens for entertainment with no signs of stopping. Turu's group arrives in Duke Garvani's town during preparations for the annual War End Festival. They visit a shop to buy magic fuel powder, but the shopkeeper seems anxious to have them leave after selling them his remaining stock. Back at their vehicle, Chaika calculates they only have enough fuel for half a day's travel. When she suggests using her memories as an alternative power source, Turu considers it briefly, but dismisses the idea, since Chaika has already lost her memories. He suggests they search the area for more conventional fuel instead. Meanwhile, Alberic and Vivi are finishing their supply run in town when they encounter a mugger robbing a noblewoman. After apprehending the thief and returning the purse, they hear his perspective on the wealth disparity between nobles and commoners, which gives Alberich insight into the commoners' struggles. At their vehicle, Alberich's team discusses their leader's character. Leonardo shares how Alberich rescued him from slavery, and others share similar stories of Alberich's nobility. They all agree, however, that Alberich is oblivious when it comes to romantic matters. Their conversation is interrupted by Curran, Conrad's messenger, who arrives with a message for Alberich, but he's not present to receive it. Vivi attempts to show romantic interest in Alberich while they share fortune cookies, but he remains oblivious. Their moment is interrupted by a messenger owl, prompting their return to their vehicle. Turu's group struggles to find magic fuel, with multiple vendors refusing to sell to them. They take a break under a peach tree, where Turu shares stories from his Saboteur training days. The group then relaxes by a lake, with Akari and Turu engaging in a playful water fight while Chaika watches. Returning to the village at sunset, they finally find a shopkeeper willing to sell them fuel. While waiting for their cartridges to be filled, Turu opens up to Chaika about his painful past, specifically about his caretaker, Hasuman's death at the hands of bandits and his mentor's disapproval of his grief. Chaika comforts him, suggesting that these memories of Hasuman influenced his decision to help her. Before they leave, the shopkeeper mentions his friend who recently acquired one of Gaz's remains, providing them with valuable information for their quest. Meanwhile, Alberich deploys Zeta and Vivi on a mission to investigate Duke Garvani's floating fortress. When Turu and Chaika return to town, they notice something unusual. The streets are filled with only men who stare at them intently. At the magic fuel shop, they're surprised to receive such a small amount of fuel from a town known for being a major supplier. The shopkeeper explains that most of their fuel goes to the Duke. When questioned about the absence of women, he reveals a disturbing truth. The Duke regularly abducts women from the town, and their fates remain unknown. The victims are taken to his mansion, which floats in the air, making rescue attempts nearly impossible. After purchasing the fuel, Turu and Chaika return to their vehicle to meet with Akari and Frederica. They begin planning how to infiltrate the Duke's floating mansion. When they ask Frederica for help reaching the mansion, she agrees on one condition: Turu must fight her upon their return. Though reluctant, Turu accepts the deal. By nightfall, the group is airborne, conducting aerial reconnaissance of the floating fortress. While Akari suggests an immediate assault, Turu advises patience, preferring to wait and develop a more strategic approach. The group executes their plan when the Duke's forces arrive for another abduction. Akari deliberately positions herself to be captured, allowing her to infiltrate the mansion. Simultaneously, Vivi and Zeta have already breached the mansion and are gathering intelligence for their report to Alberich. A crucial meeting takes place among the nation's leaders regarding Duke Garvani's actions. The military commander advocates for immediate military action against the Duke, while Conrad pleads for more time to resolve the situation diplomatically. Despite Conrad's objections, the king authorizes military intervention. As Alberich reviews the initial report from Vivi and Zeta, he receives an urgent message from Conrad about the escalating situation. The war general begins mobilizing troops for an assault on the Duke's territory. Realizing the danger, Alberich quickly dispatches a messenger owl to warn Vivi and Zeta about the impending military action. Turu's group successfully infiltrates the floating fortress but is quickly discovered by guards who attack without warning, wounding Frederica. While Turu and Chaika manage to hide, Akari is captured and brought before Riccardo Garvani, the Duke's son. Meanwhile, Vivi and Zeta continue their covert operation, pausing their disagreement when they receive Alberich's warning owl. Riccardo reveals his disturbing nature to Akari. He and his assistant Grad have been abducting town women to satisfy Riccardo's obsession with cutting people. Grad uses magic to brainwash Akari into serving them. During their search for Akari, Turu and Chaika encounter a mysterious cloaked woman who pleads for them to rescue the captured girls, using Chaika's presence to emphasize her request. After leaving them, Riccardo and Grad receive news of the incoming attack and seem pleased, revealing this was their intended outcome all along. The situation becomes chaotic when the brainwashed Akari attacks Turu alongside other guards. While Turu is distracted by this fight, the mysterious cloaked woman seizes the opportunity to separate Chaika from him. Turu continues fighting the mind-controlled Akari, unaware that she's under a spell. The battle culminates with Akari overpowering Turu and throwing him from a high platform. Fortunately, Vivi and Zeta spot his fall and use magic to save him. They form an alliance. They'll help Turu find Chaika if he helps them escape the fortress. The mysterious woman, now revealed to be Layla, imprisons Chaika and reports her capture to Riccardo. Outside the fortress, Alberich positions his forces to confront the approaching war general's army. Riccardo and Grad prepare the fortress, for movement toward the capital. Meanwhile, Layla returns to Chaika and reveals a shocking truth. She was once a Chaika doppelganger who grew tired of sharing an identity with others. She tells Chaika that she's merely one version of a complete person and hasn't discovered her true identity yet. As Turu, Vivi, and Zeta search the fortress, they discover a gruesome chamber containing Ricardo's mutilated victims. At the same time, Layla removes her cloak, finally showing her true form to Chaika. After discovering the Chamber of Victims, Turu learns from Vivi and Zeta about their suspicions regarding Ricardo and God. While they discuss this, Layla continues manipulating Chaika with lies about her identity. Though Akari finds them again, they manage to evade her this time. The situation intensifies when Frederica, who has been secretly listening to Layla and Chaika's conversation, reveals herself. Upon discovering Frederica is a dragoon, Layla commands the mansion's guard dog to attack her. Chaika watches helplessly as the massive white dog drags Frederica into the ventilation system. Outside, Alber attempts to negotiate with the army captain, pleading for a delay to allow his companions time to escape the fortress. When the captain refuses, Alber takes a stand to prevent the troops from entering the town. Meanwhile, Turu, Vivi, and Zeta encounter the same guard dog in the ventilation system and flee. Turu decides to scale the mansion's exterior walls to reach Chaika, while Alberic continues his efforts to delay the military advance. The conflict escalates as the war general orders a change in ground command after learning of Alberic's interference. The battle begins with an exchange of magic rays between the general's warship and Ricardo's fortress, causing damage to both sides. Inside the fortress, Turu encounters and kills a guard dog while searching for Chaika, who remains trapped in Layla's room. A shocking discovery occurs when Akari and Alberic's team find what appears to be Frederica's corpse, killed by the guard dog. However, a younger Frederica emerges from the dead body, revealing her ability to regenerate, and joins Akari in the search for Chaika. The battle takes a tragic turn when Ricardo's fortress misfires, sending a ray that kills Alberic and several royal guards on the ground. The fortress sustains damage that renders its magic weapons useless. In response, Layla proposes a desperate plan: crash the fortress into the capital to provoke a wider war. Ricardo, embracing this destructive idea, sets course for the capital. The situation becomes increasingly dire as Ricardo's fortress, now weaponless but still mobile, heads toward the capital with the intention of causing mass casualties to trigger a larger conflict. Despite heavy damage, the war general makes a desperate decision to ram his warship into Ricardo's fortress. Meanwhile, Chaika discovers Ricardo and Layla performing a ritual with Gaz's remains at the fortress's center. The collision sends both vessels off course, causing them to slowly descend toward the lake below. When Chaika confronts Ricardo and Layla, Ricardo's murderous impulses surface, but Turu arrives just in time to protect her. Elsewhere on the ship, Frederica transforms into her true form to battle guard dogs alongside Akari and the others. Turu engages Ricardo in combat, using his iron blood transformation. Though Ricardo initially dominates the fight, Turu eventually finds and exploits a weakness, successfully wounding him. Simultaneously, Akari locates and defeats Guard, the wizard controlling the ship, which releases all mind-controlled individuals, but also causes the ship to lose all control. As Turu helps Chaika secure her father's remains in her coffin, Layla launches a surprise attack with an arrow aimed at Chaika. Turu intercepts the arrow, but falls from the platform into the rising water flooding the ship from the lake below. When Layla attempts to attack Chaika, she's momentarily distracted by a vision of Chaika's informant. Chaika seizes this opportunity to incapacitate Layla with a spell before diving into the water to save Toru through mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Upon regaining consciousness, Toru questions her motivation for saving him. Chaika's simple response that she felt compelled to do so leads to a genuine kiss between them, which is interrupted by the arrival of Akari and Frederica, who help them escape the lake. In the sinking fortress, Ricardo spends his final moments with Layla, feeling at peace rather than remorseful. Layla expresses gratitude to Ricardo for the life he enabled her to live before the rising waters claimed them both. When Vivi and Zeta return to report to Alberic, Nikolai informs them of his death. The news triggers an intense emotional response in Vivi, causing her hair to mysteriously turn white. The story concludes with all main characters safely escaping the lake. In the final scene, Frederica offers Turu the opportunity to become a Dragoon Cavalier through a contract. Turu postpones his decision, and the group continues their quest to collect the Emperor's remains. The story flashes back to 5 years ago, when Emperor Gaz, facing imminent defeat, entrusts a secret mission to his emissary before his final battle. That night, 8 heroes from the Alliance attack and kill him. Even 5 years later, Gaz's legacy continues to frighten the Six Nations, who fear his daughter's intentions in collecting his remains. In the present, the Royal Council discusses the month-old incident involving Riccardo Garvani and the death of their war general. Conrad briefs the officials about the emergence of multiple Chaikas, all seeking to collect Emperor Gaz's remains. Meanwhile, Chaika confronts Lady Claudia, one of the 8 heroes who defeated Gaz, in an attempt to obtain her father's remains. Simultaneously, Turu and Akari engage in battle with former soldiers nearby. Concerned for Chaika's safety, Turu activates his Saboteur powers, shocking the soldiers who recognize him as a former comrade. When questioned about his loyalty, Turu declares his dedication to Chaika's wishes before defeating them. After the battle, Claudia surprisingly invites Chaika, Turu, and Akari to her mansion. There, they observe Claudia's successful management of her vineyard and winery, while enjoying a luxurious lunch. Turu and Akari express doubts about Claudia's status as one of the 8 heroes, given her current peaceful lifestyle. A servant confirms her identity as one of the heroes who defeated Emperor Gaz. Overhearing their conversation, Claudia approaches their table and offers Chaika another chance to fight for her father's remains, this time allowing her to work with her saboteurs, Turu and Akari. Chaika readily accepts the challenge. During their discussion, Claudia mentions the phenomenon of multiple Chaikas appearing throughout the region, all claiming the Emperor's remains. When Chaika attempts to assert herself as the genuine Chaika, Claudia remains unmoved. Instead, she offers practical advice, suggesting that Chaika needs to learn to cast spells more quickly if she hopes to win their next encounter. Chaika accepts this advice graciously as they conclude their visit. The evening before the rematch, Chaika struggles with learning to shorten her spells. During their night at the mansion, Frederica sneaks in to remind Turu about her Cavalier offer, but he focuses instead on helping Chaika. Under Turu's supervision, Chaika practices her spell-shortening techniques throughout the night, despite repeated failures. Meanwhile, at the capital, Conrad reviews Alberic Gillette's team's report and appoints Nikolai as their new leader, instructing them to continue investigating Chaika. During a break, Vivi encounters Guy, Chaika's informant, who reveals that she exhibits characteristics of being one of Emperor Gaz's Chaikas. Despite Vivi's initial hostility and denial, Guy insists she must accept her true identity. The rematch begins with Chaika now supported by Turu and Akari against Lady Claudia. The battle opens with Claudia demonstrating her tactical prowess by successfully distracting both saboteurs to create an opening to attack Chaika directly. The battle with Lady Claudia intensifies, with Chaika refusing to surrender despite being knocked down. While Akari engages Claudia, Turu attempts to hide Chaika, but Claudia manages to find and destroy their hiding spot. In a parallel storyline, the Red Chaika successfully defeats another hero in the forest, claiming one of Gaz's remains. Traveling with her companions David and Selma, she dwells on her resentment toward Turu for choosing the other Chaika over her, determined to collect the remaining artifacts first. Guy, the mysterious informant, appears to provide information about the next hero, Clay Morgan, and suggests they visit a coastal island. Back at Claudia's battle, the trio devises a new strategy. Turu and Akari activate their iron blood transformation to create a diversion, allowing Chaika enough time to launch a successful attack on Claudia. After her defeat, Claudia shows good sportsmanship by praising Chaika's improvement and offering additional advice before inviting them all to share another meal. In the capital, Vivi takes time to mourn Alberic. Curran provides her with Alberic's documents and journals, which reveal information about Emperor Gaz's empire. After delivering these materials to Vivi, Curran updates Conrad about her progress. During lunch at Claudia's mansion, while enjoying grapes, Claudia hands over the remains and shares an intriguing revelation about Emperor Gaz's hidden fortune. She recounts witnessing an emperor's servant's final confession about a secret island housing Gaz's wealth before being killed. Despite Claudia's invitation to stay overnight, the trio departs under darkness to avoid detection by authorities. The next morning, Chaika is troubled by a nightmare involving her father's servant's death. When she expresses doubts about her own authenticity, Turu and Akari comfort her and affirm their support. Upon reaching their next destination to meet another hero, they discover the Red Chaika's team has already stolen the artifact they sought. Without delay, Turu, Chaika, and Akari begin pursuing the Red Chaika's group, hoping to catch up before they get too far ahead. During their journey, Chaika dozes off while driving and wakes up near the ocean. She convinces Turu and Akari to take a break, leading to a playful moment where she and Akari splash water on an annoyed Turu. As they resume their journey, Chaika expresses anxiety about what awaits them at Clay Morgan's mansion, particularly concerning her father's fortune. Turu reassures her of his constant support. Upon arriving at Clay's mansion, they find a long line of entertainers waiting to audition. Realizing they need to blend in, the group poses as performers, with Akari successfully getting them inside. Once there, Turu and Akari perform to amuse Clay, but then Turu reveals their true identity. When Chaika also shows herself and states their purpose, Clay becomes terrified and flees his mansion. While Turu and Akari pursue Clay, they leave Frederica to protect Chaika. Clay's extreme reaction to Chaika suggests he might know something significant about her or her father. After an extensive search through town, Turu unexpectedly finds Clay in an unlikely hiding spot. Clay immediately attacks, revealing his deep-seated fear of Emperor Gaz, recounting how even in his final moments the Emperor's intimidating presence haunted the 8 heroes. Clay explains that he employs entertainers as a way to distract himself from these traumatic memories. Akari joins the confrontation, and together with Turu, they manage to subdue Clay. When Clay questions their motives, Turu simply requests the Emperor's remains. Clay readily surrenders them, warning Turu to never return. Back in town, Guy makes another appearance, directing them to visit the coastal island. Turu and Akari begin planning their journey to this new destination. Meanwhile, in a separate development, Shin Akura, Turu's former mentor, receives orders from a strange king and his 2 daughters to track down and capture his previous student and their Chaika. Upon returning to their vehicle, Turu and Akari discover Chaika has been independently asking fishermen for transportation to the island. After Turu scolds her for wandering off alone, Chaika becomes emotional about finding her father's fortune and understanding the mystery of multiple Chaikas. In the heat of the moment, she accidentally fires Turu and Akari from their duties. Turu retreats to the beach to contemplate their situation, where Akari convinces him they must return to Chaika, knowing she didn't truly mean to dismiss them. However, when they return, they find Chaika has convinced Frederica to fly her to the island. Turu quickly borrows a boat from Clay Morgan to follow them, with Clay helping them leave town. Meanwhile, Chaika uses magic to disperse the fog concealing the island. The situation becomes complicated when they discover the Red Chaika's team had secretly boarded their ship. Just as both groups prepare to confront each other, a kraken appears and destroys the ship. Simultaneously, the island's defensive dragoons shoot down Chaika and Frederica from their aerial approach. After the crash, Chaika becomes separated from Frederica and her magical coffin, forcing her to continue with only her sniper gun. Despite the Kraken's attack, Red Chaika's team successfully reaches the island. Turu and Akari also survive and take an alternate route up the mountain. The island's security proves effective as both Chaika and Red Chaika's group are separately captured by guards. Turu and Akari discover a piece of Chaika's clothing, leading them to suspect her capture. Inside a secret laboratory on the island, the Emperor's emissary, who oversees Chaika experiments, receives news from a demi-human guard about the partial success in capturing intruders. The emissary responds with anger and verbal abuse toward the messenger. While imprisoned, Chaika interacts with a demi-human maid who hints at significant upcoming events on the island. Meanwhile, Turu and Akari separate to cover more ground. Turu infiltrates the building's dungeon to rescue Chaika, while Akari finds and saves Frederica from dangerous wildlife. After rescuing Chaika, Turu and she discover a room containing an imprisoned sentient kraken. The creature reveals that the emissary has been using it for cloning experiments. More importantly, it shares crucial information about the Chaika's true nature, adding to Chaika's growing uncertainty about her identity. Meanwhile, the demi-human guards holding Red Chaika's group strategize about capturing the remaining intruders. The kraken provides a detailed history of magic, explaining how Emperor Gaz's ambition led him to attempt controlling natural magic. It reveals that the Chaikas were created as tools to fulfill the Emperor's grand scheme. Before the Kraken can finish its explanation, guards capture Turu and Chaika. They're brought before Isashi, the director of the Institute of Magic, who meets both Chaikas simultaneously. During this meeting, a Chaika clone in containment responds to their presence by saying, Chaika. Isashi then reveals the shocking truth. The Chaikas aren't actually Gaz's daughters, but rather orphaned girls whose memories were magically altered after the war. He explains how he, Victor Isashi, created the entire Chaika program by manipulating these orphans into believing they were the Emperor's daughters, effectively creating the Chaika phenomenon. After revealing the truth, Isashi imprisons everyone, including his loyal demi-human servants, Ursula and Cyril, whom he decides to dispose of after deeming them no longer useful. The two Chaikas, despite Red Chaika's obvious irritation with White Chaika, manage to work together to overpower their guards and escape. They make their way to Isamashi's research office, where White Chaika convinces a reluctant Red Chaika to help free another Chaika named Nivalata from the research lab. Upon discovering Niva's escape, Isashi orders an immediate lockdown of the facility. However, Turu, Akari, and Frederica have already freed themselves and begun searching for Chaika. During their search, Akari manages to rescue David and Selma, Red Chaika's companions, as well as the imprisoned demi-humans who plead for help. Isashi returns to his office to find Nivalata, his prized experiment, missing. As Turu successfully locates both Chaikas and assists in their escape, Isashi desperately orders his men to recapture Nivalata at any cost. However, he soon learns that his captives have already broken out of the building and are heading toward the island's exit. After their rescue, David, Selma, and the demi-humans help by securing the dragoons and demon unicorns. They then clear Isamashi's office of guards. Outside the building, the group faces attacks from the island's magical beasts, the Orthros and Phalas, while Isashi continues his magical assault. In a crucial moment, Niva transforms into magical essence and merges with Chaika's sniper gun. Using this enhanced weapon, Chaika launches a devastating attack that destroys Isamashi's facility and kills him in the process. After the battle, the various groups part ways. Meanwhile, at a royal meeting, officials discuss a concerning development in King Stefan Hartgen's kingdom, where he's organized a competition for fighters to battle for Emperor Gaz's remains. While some senators push for immediate confrontation, Commander Fyodor suggests a more cautious approach of investigating first. The board agrees and assigns Conrad to lead the investigation. In the aftermath, as Chaika struggles with uncertainty about her purpose, Turu offers comfort. Nivalata provides some clarity by telling Chaika that she is the one truly destined to collect Arthur Gaz's remains, suggesting she has a genuine purpose despite the revelations about her artificial origins. King Stefan receives an important message from the capital of the Six Kingdoms through his messenger. The message asks him to explain the reason for his tournament and its rules. King Stefan dismisses the question and tells his messenger that the tournament will continue whether the capital approves or not. In another scene, Turu and his adopted sister swim in the ocean to catch their breakfast. They catch a very big fish and start cooking it for their group of 4. During their meal, Guy shows up again to tell them where to find the next hero who has some of the remains. He informs them that King Stefan Hartgen has some of these remains and warns them to hurry before Red Chaika's group gets there first. After Guy leaves, Turu says how much he dislikes him and questions who Guy's employer might be. He then turns back to his group and continues eating. Nikolai and his team reach Isamashi's island, but find the research building destroyed by Niva and Chaika's explosion. While they look through the ruins, they meet Ursula and Cyril. After they introduce themselves, the demi-humans tell them about everything that happened a few nights ago. Leonardo asks Cyril why Isashi kept doing his research after the Emperor's death. Cyril explains that Isashi was following the Emperor's instructions. After sharing all they knew about the island and Isashi, the demi-humans return to the forest. Nikolai's team gets a message from Conrad several hours later. He tells them about where Turu and Red Chaika are heading next. Conrad also gives them approval to go to Verbist, King Stefan Hartgen's town, to keep investigating. After eating breakfast, Chaika shares her worries with Turu. She's afraid she might not be a real person. Turu reassures her, saying he's determined to help her regardless of what's true. Around this time, Akari comes back from fishing and brings some mollusks for everyone to eat. Red Chaika and her group reach Verbist's gates, where guards suddenly attack them. They're prepared and successfully defeat all the guards. Then, another guard appears and welcomes them to the tournament. He gives them a red cloth to wear on their arms to show their tournament participants. Chaika and her companions take the bands and move forward. In another part of town, 2 tournament participants start fighting before the tournament officially begins. A strange person who resembles Alber steps into the fight and defeats both fighters. Everyone watches in shock as he walks away and tells the guards to clean up the scene. Turu and his group stop at a town to eat lunch. The shopkeeper warns them to avoid Verbis during the tournament, saying it will be dangerous and violent. While in their vehicle, Nikolai and his team discuss King Stefan's reasons for hosting the tournament. Nikolai decides to divide his team. Some will meet the king while others will join the tournament. Matthias and Zita from Nikolai's team meet with King Stefan, but even after hearing their concerns, he he refuses to stop the tournament. Nikolai's group passes the qualifying round and enters the tournament, as do Turu and his team. Later, Guy appears to the blonde man who earlier defeated the two fighters in town. When the blonde man asks Guy's identity, Guy explains everything. Alberic didn't die during the battle between the war general and Ricardo. Guy had rescued him from death at the last moment, confirming that the blonde man is indeed Alberic. After revealing this truth, Guy vanishes. Meanwhile, random fights continue breaking out across town. The king's guards return to get Matthias and Zita from their vehicle, inviting them back to the palace for entertainment. At the same time, Chaika, Turu, and Akari sneak into the palace through its sewer system. Chaika uses a locator spell to find her father's remains from within the sewers and shares the information with her companions. That night, Guy appears and takes Neva away with him. Chaika witnesses this and follows them, but Neva assures her not to worry, explaining that she's going with Guy by choice. Under the night's darkness, Akari and Turu swim into the city's main underground water system. They swim underwater until they find an entrance to the palace. When they come up for air, they discover traps above them. They manage to avoid being killed by two large axes and climb out of the water. However, they then encounter their old mentor, Shin, and must fight him. Shin proves stronger and forces them to retreat the way they came. Turu and Akari return to their hotel rooms, shocked from seeing Shin. While they're drying off, Chaika tells them about Guy taking Neva away. Turu warns Chaika to stay away from Guy because he can't be trusted. When Akari mentions their encounter with Shin, Chaika is surprised and starts sharing random facts. Turu ignores her rambling and asks if she has any magic fuel remaining. When Chaika confirms she does, Turu asks her to use her locator spell again to search for either their enemies or the remains in the kingdom. Chaika uses the spell and discovers that both the remains and the king are likely at the castle's top. Around the same time, Stefan meets with Guy and Neva. During their meeting, Stefan, who had been getting help from Guy and his black Chaika, admits he made a serious mistake 5 years ago when he helped humans defeat the Emperor. He reveals that he's a warrior who never wanted peace, as he feels his life has no meaning without war. The following day, Stefan delivers a powerful speech to excite and encourage the tournament warriors to fight with all their might. Many warriors gather to participate, including Turu, Akari, Chaika, Red Chaika, Nikolai, Vivi, and other curious fighters. Black Chaika watches her father's speech on a monitor from her room, joined by her sisters Irina and Ariana, who also watch their father's live address. After the speech ends, the tournament begins. The rules require each team to defeat other warriors, take their armbands, and deliver them to the guards to advance to the next round. Turu divides his team into two groups. While working together, he and Chaika make good progress until they encounter Vivi and Nikolai. The two teams discuss the mysterious Guy and question why he took Neva, the Emperor's fortune. Vivi suggests that the king might be working with them to collect all of the Emperor's remains. Akari and Frederica, working as the other team, continue defeating their opponents to advance in the tournament. Meanwhile, during an emergency meeting with the royals, nation officials learn that Chaika has stolen Gaz's fortune and hidden it. This news angers the officials, who immediately call for another war. While most agree, Fyodor urges them to remain calm to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. After the meeting ends, one official secretly plans with a colleague to begin gathering armies for war. Fyodor and Conrad discuss the floating fortresses that Gaz possessed before his empire fell. During their conversation about this, they receive a message from the Gillette squad. The message reveals that Hartgen is actively pushing for war to begin. Meanwhile, Red Chaika and her team are banned from certain parts of the tournament. The organizers explain that this is because her team broke the rules by using magic during the competition. As the fighting moves into the forest and becomes more challenging, Chaika and Turu still manage to quickly defeat their opponents. After their fight, Chaika tells Turu they must defeat the other Chaikas and recover her father's remains. In the tournament's second round, surviving teams must cross a bridge and defeat two other teams to reach the palace's third inner wall. While many teams attempt to cross their bridges, only a few succeed, including Nikolai and Vivi. However, when they reach the other side, guards capture them and take them on a different route. Someone had revealed their true identities to the king, who ordered his guards to bring them to the castle's top for unknown reasons. Turu and Chaika make it through the third wall but meet the same fate. Guards capture them and lead them down a separate path, similar to Vivi and Nikolai. While walking along this path, Turu and Chaika discuss the Emperor. Turu asks Chaika if she shares her father's and Hartgen's desire for war. Chaika surprises him by saying she wants nothing to do with war, making Turu smile as they continue walking. Meanwhile, Leonardo finds Mateus and Zita in prison. He returns their sniper guns and helps them escape. As they prepare to leave, they meet one of the king's former retainers, who begs to be freed. After they release him, the retainer shares information about King Stefan as thanks. He explains that Stefan changed after the war ended. During peacetime, he realized he had always craved war and hated peace. This continued until Black Chaika arrived and showed him how to restart the recently ended war. After explaining how these events led to the current tournament, the retainer leaves the castle, pleading with the trio to stop the king before it's too late. At the same time, Stefan meets with Black Chaika to discuss their next steps. Black Chaika advises him to remain patient and watch as their plan unfolds when the involved parties realize what they've gotten themselves into. Elsewhere in the castle, Akari and Frederica find a room containing multiple Chaikas and their coffins. They manage to defeat these Chaikas and continue searching for the remains. Meanwhile, Turu and Chaika finally reach the end of the long tunnel they've been traveling through, only to find Black Chaika waiting for them, surrounded by guards. In another part of the castle, Nikolai and Vivi accidentally discover their former captain Alberic's cell, but before they can speak with him, a guard arrives to return them to the tournament. A few minutes later, Vivi and Nikolai encounter their former master, Alberic. Without any hesitation, Alberic attacks his former students and nearly defeats them. Vivi tries repeatedly to reason with him, but Alberic appears to have lost all his memories and continues fighting. The battle continues until he pins Nikolai down and raises his sword for a killing blow. Just before he can strike, Vivi cuts off his right hand with her sword. The sound of Vivi's voice suddenly triggers Alberic's memories. Taking advantage of this moment, Nikolai and Vivi quickly help Alberic escape from the arena to avoid the guards. While trying to find an exit from the castle, Akari and Frederica encounter Shin, Akari's former mentor. Shin neutralizes Frederica's powers and engages in combat with Akari. Meanwhile, Turu and Chaika come face to face with Red Chaika and David. After trading insults, both teams begin fighting. Turu activates his Iron Blood transformation technique to battle David, while the two Chaikas engage in magical combat with each other. The battle continues until both David and Red Chaika are struck. Red Chaika acknowledges her defeat and withdraws from the fight. Just then, Shin appears, carrying an unconscious Akari and Frederica. Turu immediately challenges Shin but is defeated by his former mentor. After overpowering Turu, Shin presents an ultimatum. If Turu wants to see Chaika again, he must surrender the remaining Emperor's remains in his possession. These events appear to be unfolding exactly as King Stefan had planned. Turu and Akari are expelled from the castle along with Frederica. When they recover, they discover Frederica has been poisoned and can't heal normally. Meanwhile, Red Chaika decides to abandon her quest for the Emperor's remains and instructs David to give their collected remains to Turu's Chaika. When they return to their motel, they find Selma has been defeated. Red Chaika rushes to meet Turu's Chaika, only to learn that White Chaika has been taken hostage by the king. Nikolai and Vivi successfully smuggle the one-handed Alberic out of the palace and return to their motel, where they find Leonardo and Zita, who are excited to see their boss alive despite his injury. Turu makes it back to their vehicle to rest and plan their next move. Frederica attempts to rid herself of the poison by molting, but this proves ineffective as she remains dizzy in her new form. Turu retrieves Chaika's coffin and prepares to return to the palace. At the same time, Alberic and his team manage to reach their vehicle without detection. They immediately contact Chief Conrad to update him on recent events. While Conrad ponders King Stefan's motives for wanting war, he can't seem to understand the reasoning behind it. After capturing White Chaika, Shin brings her to Stefan. Upon seeing the king, White Chaika experiences a flashback to the day of her father's death. Meanwhile, Conrad connects Alberic with Fyodor by phone. Fyodor informs them about the capital sending a floating fortress to Verbist and urges them to prevent an all-out war between the six kingdoms. Alberic assures them of victory and returns to the palace. Simultaneously, Turu and Akari arrive at the palace, hoping to exchange Chaika's coffin for her release. Upon their arrival and presentation of the coffin to the king, they discover that Guy has been working with Stefan all along. An even bigger revelation follows. Black Chaika's true intentions are exposed. She had been manipulating Stefan's desire for war merely to gather all the Emperor's remains in one place. When Turu attempts to attack her, Alberic restrains him, advising him to wait. Black Chaika then begins a revival ritual, absorbing all of Gaz's remains. Everyone watches as the strange magical reaction causes Black Chaika to experience intense sensations while Emperor Gaz returns to life. When the revival completes, Emperor Gaz initially appears as a young boy. Stefan immediately pledges his loyalty and offers to serve him, but Gaz responds by killing him. He then reveals the truth to the Chaikas present. They were merely tools, created to facilitate his return. Gaz then transforms into his adult form and takes his place on the throne. Everyone watches in shock as he tells Turu's Chaika how much she resembles the original Chaika, who stayed with him during the cloning process. When Turu challenges him about his reasons for being reborn, Gaz explains that he wanted to experience the fear of death before returning years later to bring 1,000 years of war to humanity, believing this would satisfy their inherent desire for conflict. He reveals he created a device capable of absorbing emotions and converting them into magical power. After this revelation, Gaz destroys part of the castle wall and summons his wand, Neva, which attaches to his hands. He immediately uses Neva to launch a magical attack at the capital's floating fortress. Before fully initiating the war, Gaz points Neva skyward and fires another beam into space, summoning his own floating fortress that had been hidden there. In the series finale, the royals gather to discuss their response to the destruction of their floating fortress in Verbist. While most royals advocate for immediate war against Verbist, Fyodor maintains his faith in the Gillette team and urges patience. After summoning his floating castle, Gaz begins attacking the city of Verbist. Chaika, devastated and feeling purposeless, receives comfort from Turu. When they're attacked by other Chaikas, Turu uses his remaining strength to fend them off. Alber joins them and asks Turu about their next move. In a desperate decision, Turu abandons his role as a Saboteur and forms a Dragoon Cavalier contract with Frederica. This pact transforms Turu into a more powerful being. Mounting his new Dragoon form, he flies toward the tower with Chaika. Before confronting Gaz, Turu leaves Chaika on a nearby building and continues alone to the floating tower. Inside, Gaz and Shin discuss the activation of magical devices that Gaz had stored in space for his return. Meanwhile, Alber sends an urgent report to his superior about Gaz's resurrection and his plans for war. At the same time, Black Chaika has Akari and Red Chaika cornered, continuously sending waves of Chaika clones to attack them. Turu struggles to penetrate the floating fortress's barrier until Gaz surprisingly allows him entry. Meanwhile, Alberic uncovers the potential consequences of Gaz successfully activating the feeling device. On the ground, Akari and her allies continue their battle against the endless waves of Chaika clones. Inside the fortress, Turu encounters Shin on his way to confront Emperor Gaz. They engage in combat, resulting in Shin being fatally wounded. In his dying moments, Shin proudly acknowledges Turu's growth into his true potential. Simultaneously, Akari's group persists in their fight against the seemingly immortal Chaikas, who keep returning in large numbers. The tide turns when Red Chaika manages to defeat Black Chaika, which causes the other attacking Chaikas to deactivate. Running low on magic bullets, Chaika uses her remaining power to cast a locator spell to find Turu and Frederica within the floating castle. She locates them in the Emperor's chambers and silently sends them her wishes for success. In Gaz's chambers, Turu endures the Emperor's lengthy monologue about humanity and warfare. Despite Gaz's praise, which only irritates Turu further, Turu launches his attack but is quickly defeated. However, he persists, forcing Gaz to pin him down with spears. The Emperor then opens part of his castle, attempting to expel Turu and his Dragoon. Chaika, seeing this, casts a protective shield spell that saves Turu and Frederica from harm. Gaz spots Chaika on another tower aiming at him and summons his wand, Neva, to attack her. In an unexpected turn, Neva refuses to harm Chaika and instead detaches from Gaz to join with Chaika. Once merged, Chaika channels her memories into magical energy, creating a massive destructive beam. Although Gaz attempts to counter it, the power proves overwhelming, and he is destroyed once again, bringing peace to the land. In the aftermath, Albrecht reports their success at a royal meeting and receives a promotion for his efforts. Chief Conrad is also promoted to officer status and returns to have a reunion with the Gillette team. Red Chaika joins forces with Turu and Akari. The series concludes with Turu taking Chaika to a peach tree, where they stand together, looking into the distance, their bond now unbreakable.